Kirsten Gillibrand is chair of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, laying out a strategy for a power shift in Washington. But before we get to that, we have to talk about one of the people who you work with, a Republican from Alabama, Tommy Tuberville, who sent out a post where he basically attacked the mayor of the city of New York, had a picture of him on a prayer rug juxtaposed next to a picture of 9/11 saying they're inside the gate. Your reaction to that?
A deeply hateful post, clearly Islamophobic, just mean. And I called on him to take it down and to apologize, because we don't need that kind of hate anywhere in this country.
But you also have Congressman Randy Fine from Florida who's saying deport Muslims, that they have to get out of the country. Like, what is going on in Congress that is now stoking this Islamophobia and also, by extension, anti-Semitism?
Yeah, I just think that we should remember that this country was founded on a certain set of values where we are supposed to love our neighbor. We are supposed to treat others as we want to be treated. And I think that is being lost in today's rhetoric. And hate only creates more hate. Only love can destroy hate. And so people really need to be trying to be far kinder, far more open. This country was built in large part with the diversity of immigration and people from all over the globe. And so it's what makes New York City, for example, such a powerful and important city. It's a world city. And so being so hateful towards people of different faiths or different backgrounds or different countries of origin is just not only unhelpful, but can engender anger and violence and a horrible type of ecosystem that we're going to have to live in. And so we don't want a community and a culture fueled by hate.
So you think it makes it more difficult for you to get things done in Washington because of this culture of hate?
So I push against it every day. I work really hard on a bipartisan basis to get things done for New York. New Yorkers care deeply about the cost of groceries and the cost of housing and the cost of transportation and energy. And they want us, members of Congress, to work on a bipartisan basis to make their lives better. And so I feel called every day by my own faith and by public service to build those bridges, bring people together, and solve the problems that people are actually facing.
So you have a big job. You are chairman of the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee, and your job is to figure out a strategy to turn the Senate Democratic. What's your strategy?
So we have huge opportunities right now to flip the Senate, and it's largely because of President Trump. President Trump has created a very toxic agenda that is hurting Americans across the board. When he was elected, Americans wanted him to focus on getting costs down, get us out of forever wars, and he's done the exact opposite. He's done nothing to bring groceries and housing and electricity costs down. He's raised costs of everything with his chaotic tariffs. And now this war in Iran is also continuing to raise our fuel costs. He's spending over $1 billion a day on this war in Iran when he should be spending those resources here at home, like he promised, to get our grocery costs down and our housing costs down.
Well, you know, it's also been sort of an unpopular war. The polls show that the majority of people in the country, nationwide, do not support this war. So you have to ask yourself this question: why is he doing it? And will this be an issue that will resonate in November?
I think so. I think people do not want $1 billion spent a day on bombs. They want that money spent on food and housing. And so President Trump is making these decisions that are very bad for Americans, making their costs go higher, not making health care more accessible, cutting millions of people off of Medicaid and access to health care. And so to your initial question, how do we flip the Senate? These candidates, really strong candidates that the Democrats have recruited to run, have a chance of flipping red and purple states across the country. We have a few that we're going to hold that are up, but then we think we can win North Carolina and Maine and Ohio and Alaska. And then we have 4 longer shot races where any one of these candidates could win because our candidates are so formidable. We've got, in that group, we've got Iowa, we've got Texas, we've got Mississippi, and we've got Florida. So the map has 11 states on it right now. I am optimistic that we can deliver the 4 we need to flip the Senate, maybe more. But it's because of Trump's toxic agenda, our strong candidates that are formidable and represent their states, and then really huge recruiting failures on the Republican side. Looking at Texas, for example, they have a primary between 2 guys, Cornyn and Paxton. They've already spent $100 million on that primary. And neither seem to be doing very well.
But what about your Democratic, the candidate's going to run against him, Tallarico?
So this guy, Tallarico, is really promising. He's got a great story about who he is. He's a local elected and studying for the ministry as a minister in the Presbyterian faith. And he is able to build bridges. His whole candidacy was about what we were talking about, that he thinks America wants leaders who bring us back together again, who bridge the divide and get things done to lower costs for groceries and housing and everything else people care about. And that's what he's run on.
But see, there's also this other issue that's percolating there, and that's the president's insistence on having a bill that would require people to show proof of who they are when they go to vote. And that's sort of upsetting the apple cart around the country, but also especially in Texas. And he's trying to push John Cornyn to support that initiative.
Yeah, I'm sure Cornyn does.
Or a negative when it comes to November.
Well, I think what President Trump's trying to do is subvert the election and make sure people can't vote. This is not about having an ID to show up. If it was, we'd be for it, because that's not what this is about.
What is it about?
So it's saying if you need to register to vote anywhere in the country, you need to show up with a passport or a birth certificate that matches your current name. My current name, Kirsten Gillibrand, is my married name. I was born Kirsten Elizabeth Rutnick. And so that would mean I would have to go get a new birth certificate that matches my married name in time and receive it in time to vote. Only about half of Americans have passports. And if you've changed your name, the other thing that's not good enough is military ID. All our veterans, all our men and women who are deployed, those military IDs that they use for everything is not good enough. Your driver's license is not good enough.
So does this pass?
Well, Democrats are going to block it. 100% we are against this because it's telling people.
But does he have the votes in the Republican conference to get it passed?
No, not unless they change the rules of the Senate, which Trump wants them to do.
But
I don't think a lot of the Republicans want to change the rules of the Senate. The Senate was never intended to be a 51 vote threshold body. It was intended to be 60 votes, so you have bipartisanship, so you have consensus. You know, they compare it to the saucer around the coffee cup. The coffee cup is hot, the saucer lets it cool. That's what the Senate's supposed to be, so we make better decisions over time because we're building consensus between 2 parties as opposed to a one-party rule like the House.
So do you think the president's going to continue to push this, or do you think that he's going to give up?
Well, he wants to push it because he's going to lose the election, and he knows it. And he's basically said that. He said, if you think you're going to win the election without this, you're wrong. I mean, multiple times he said he wants to pass this because he wants to make sure some people can't vote. And the people he doesn't want to vote are all sorts of people, because a driver's license is not good enough. I'm telling you, if you don't have your passport up to date and you need to register to vote somewhere, you might not be able to vote. You've been voting your whole life. And think of all the older people. Think of our seniors who might not have an up-to-date passport. They might not have traveled in decades. And if they're married or whatever, they might not have that birth certificate at home.
Senator, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversations continue right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. We'll be right back. We are back with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and I have to talk to you about a vote that happened on Thursday night in the Senate where the attempt to get funding for DHS was killed in the Senate, despite the fact that the president and his Republican colleagues are urging passage of this bill because they say they need it during this time of war. So we've offered, I think, twice now to fund all of Homeland Security except for ICE. So fully fund FEMA, fully fund all the Homeland Security operations outside of ICE, fully fund all the protection money that's in that bill. And what about DHS itself? Just not ICE?
Just not ICE, yeah. So
they won't go with that?
No, and we've offered that twice. So they're obviously playing politics. And we will give them the rest of the bill if they do basic reforms, like have an ID, don't cover your face, follow rules, actually have training. Like, we're not asking for the sky and the moon. We're literally asking for the most common sense, bipartisan rules that have been implemented in the past for training and for basic rules to make sure they're not killing American citizens and not literally violating people's civil rights left and right. And so we're asking for basic reforms, and they're just unwilling to do it.
But I don't understand. If you're willing to give them everything but ICE, what's the holdup?
They wouldn't let us vote on it.
You'll even allow them to have DHS funding.
Yes.
And the Coast Guard.
Yes.
And TSA.
Yes.
And FEMA.
Yes. And we offered it this week, and we offered it last week. So we're happy to fund everything else. We just want the reforms. I think they're not willing to agree because they don't want to do the reforms. And so they think they can bash us because of these other areas and get us to give up our reforms. But the reforms are important. You know, if you live anywhere in the United States, but let's just say Minnesota, Americans are terrified of their own government. That is not how government and Homeland Security is supposed to work. That's not what ICE is supposed to do. ICE is supposed to work on anti-terrorism. It's supposed to work on drug interdiction, making sure we don't have guns coming into our country and drugs coming into it. Those are the legitimate missions, but they've been turned into a personal force for President Trump, and it's destroying our democracy. It's destroying people's civil liberties, and people have been killed, and it's not right. And so we expect basic reforms.
You know, some people think that ICE should be abolished. How do you feel about that?
Well, they do have these appropriate functions of stopping gun trafficking and human trafficking and drug trafficking into our country. And they do have a proper function. But if they're not doing that function and they're turned into President Trump's personal force, that is not something that we are prepared to fund.
So are you also trying to fight the aggressive deportations that have been seen in Minnesota and other places?
Well, it's inhumane to send someone to a country they've never been to before without any hearing, without any, like, they keep lying. They keep saying all these people are terrorists. All these people have criminal records, and it's just not true. So, and they're sending people to countries they've never been to, into a prison system that has no human rights. I mean, it's frightening. It's terrifying. I mean, I can't tell you how many New Yorkers are terrified for their loved ones and their family members.
So let's talk about the war. Do you think this was the right thing for the country to do?
No, I don't. I think if you're going to commit the country to war, you need to have a reason, like protecting the country. We are not safer now because of this war. And in fact, Americans specifically voted for no forever wars. And if you're going to have to engage to protect this country, you're going to have a plan. You're going to have Congress's buy-in. You're going to have an exit strategy. All the things President Trump hasn't even considered or worked on or even talked to us about.
How do we get out of this?
Well, I don't know how President Trump intends on getting out of this. I hope it is very short-lived. He's spending literally $18 billion already, over $1 billion a day on this war. And as you've seen, we've had terror attempts across the country, which may or may not be related to the war. But the rise in anti-Semitism, the rise in anti-Muslim acts is disgraceful, and people feel less safe. And everyone in this country should be able to worship their faith where they want to worship their faith, whether it's at a church, a temple, or a mosque, or a synagogue. They should be able to go to their places of worship. And right now, people are frightened to just do that basic human right that the American people expect as part of our democracy.
But you have a situation where now it's also affecting gas and oil prices because they're shutting down the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah. Well, instead of investing these $11 billion on bombs, he should be investing in getting the cost of groceries down, getting the cost of gasoline down, getting the cost of all things down. Between the war and the chaotic tariffs, the cost of everything has gone up. And I don't see it coming down. And so the American people have spoken. They really wanted this focus. And that is why, Marcia, we are going to win in these midterm elections. We're going to be able to shift the House. We're going to be able to shift the Senate. And then the American people will have oversight and accountability over this administration. And if the war is still going on, stop this war. And again, refocus on the economy and what people need.
Well, you know, Governor Hochul just said that she thinks that there should be tax forgiveness and the gas pump, that they should eliminate the federal excise taxes nationwide while we're in this crisis. How do you feel about that?
It's a very good idea. We should get rid of the gas tax. We should use the gas reserve. Both of those changes are temporary changes, but it's something we can do to just alleviate the pressure. And these tariffs, the judge has said they were illegal. Every American should get a refund on those tariffs. Every American business and every American should get a refund. We've spent in New York over $4,000 more a year because of those tariffs. We should be getting a refund.
So last two areas I want to talk to you about. First of all, the president says he wants it, after he gets done with Iran, he wants to take over Cuba.
Oh my God.
He said that.
He behaves like an adolescent. It's shocking how his mind just continues to wander to all different places. And I don't see the benefit to the United States with that, with an additional war.
So, but also, what about Ukraine? I mean, he seems to have forgotten about that as well.
He's forgotten about our allies. He's forgotten about our NATO commitments. He's forgotten about the role that the United States used to play in the world as a stability creator. He's creating massive instability. He's not only, he's gone into Venezuela. He's taken out the leaders there, but left in the government. So it wasn't actually a regime change. He's decapitated leadership in Iran, where he didn't even leave in place the people that he had hoped to take over.
Because he killed them.
He killed them, and now he has the son of the supreme leader, whose both wife and child have been killed. Do you think he's going to be more moderate? I don't think so. So again, President Trump is making us less safe in all of these decisions he's making without any basis for the American people. The American people aren't being served here. I don't know who he's serving or what he's serving, but right now we see it helping Russia. We see it undermining security in the Middle East, security in South America, undermining the American public because our gas prices are so high. It's really harming everyone, and I don't know what his purpose is because he doesn't bother to talk to Congress like he's supposed to.
You know, I had an interesting conversation with an expert at the Foreign Policy Council on the war in Iran, and he says that Israel's philosophy about going after Iran is something called mowing the lawn, that every 5 or 6 years you got to go in and attack them and get rid of their bombs and their missiles and stuff, because just like grass grows and then you have to mow it to get down, he says you have to do the same thing in Iran. Do you think that's what the president's doing here, or are we finally going to see an end to going after Iran?
I can't tell you because he's been so unclear. He's given us 3 or 4 different rationales for Iran. But what concerns me is that we just had a bombing of a girls' school in Iran. And I'd like to know how that building was targeted, what decision was made by whom, under what context. Secretary Hegseth has undermined the 2 areas within the Department of Defense that actually do civilian protection. One of the departments he's cut by 90%. He wants to not have constitutional issues and human rights issues being weighed. He wants to dismiss all the senior lawyers, right? Yes, just today, he says he wants to dismiss all the senior lawyers who do these types of human rights analyses and make sure that we are waging war or doing combat operations that are consistent with the law of war and other humanitarian regulations. And so this is a disgrace. I think Hegseth should resign. And if he doesn't resign, President Trump should fire him for this disgraceful act of hitting a girls' school when it could have been prevented. The factual information that this was a school and no longer a building as part of the Iranian naval assets was publicly available. So publicly available that the New York Times could look it up with satellite footage that was publicly available. So anybody could have known that was a school if they'd just done the review. And this was the first day of the attack. So these were all pre-planned targets that should have gone through a lens of, do you have the right target? Are these all military assets? Are there any civilians there? And clearly that wasn't done, and Hegseth should be held accountable, and Trump should fire him.
Last question, Gateway. You know, the suits were filed to stop the president from withholding funding. He's now funding it again, but now Gateway people are saying it could happen again in a few months. What's going to happen here? Well,
President Trump is chaotic, and he does not follow the law often. He's broken more norms, more constitutional provisions, more laws than any president could have ever imagined. And he will likely disregard this court ruling again. But the court was very clear. This funding has been allocated. It's necessary for the economy of the entire Eastern Seaboard.
Believe me,
it's not like this is a pet project that just is wasteful spending. No, this is how the economy works on the Eastern Seaboard. You need the Gateway Tunnel for goods and services to move quickly, and for commerce and trade to move quickly. And to not fund it is obscene. I remember a meeting I had with President Trump in his first administration about Gateway, and his his problem was it was a tunnel. I can't see a tunnel. People don't know we're investing in a tunnel. Why don't you invest in airports instead? And we're like, no, we need this for the economy. So he sometimes doesn't make his decisions on the best rationales.
And on that note, thank you for joining me. And thank you at home for joining us as well.